recording. Are we June 13th?
Good question. Yes.
EST meeting. David requested that we always start with acknowledgements. Are there any acknowledgements? I haven't looked.
Loading the wiki here. Yeah, I don't see anything on the wiki, but that doesn't mean there aren't acknowledgements. Does anybody on the call or in the room have anybody they'd like to thank?
I'd like to thank Scott for heroic effort getting HC 3C up and running with a pod for the OPNFE summit.
Great. Yeah, if you have a chance to remember to add it to the wiki, it'd be nice to capture it there.
Thanks, and I'd like to recognize Andy for helping me out with that too.
It was a major challenge. We fought our first installed firewalls that led Scott and Andy into some difficult corners.
Great, yeah, well, congratulations.
Okay, so the other thing is we want to make a quick run across the brigade just to get and this needs to be quick because we have some other things we want to talk about, but just a quick update on how things are going. Are they moving along?
And if there's any blockers.
And if there's any blockers.
And what kind of support you could use. So I'm going to point to Andy on the performance brigade.
So what's going
Status.
on?
Yeah, what's going on? Is any blockers?
So we have a weekly meeting every Friday. We're scheduled now. The last Friday was our first of the series for keeping track of what's going on. The status is that Intel had previously worked out a method of manually integrating the toolkit with OpenStack and Cord, and now we're trying to figure out what steps need to be taken to bring that into the Cord build process so it can occur in an automated fashion. The work item that we have right now is kind of looking at the steps that they had to take and breaking that into stories, trying to scope the work and figure out how it fits in with different aspects of the build. And then after that, I guess we will figure out who's actually going to take on the engineering that needs to happen in order to do it.
What engineering do you have semi-lined up? This year is on the list. You Intel people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that leaves my question about support. Do you need help with more recruiting, or do you feel like for now?
It's hard to say at this point. I guess it's depending on. The issue is that we know essentially what we need to do, but work is really going to be kind of integrating it with Cord. So it's only maybe a few people around here who really have the depth of knowledge and
I'm getting a lot of static in the background. If you're not talking, could you mute? Or I don't know where the static's coming.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Could everybody please mute, because I can't hear anything.
So I think to finish answering your question, I'm not sure how to recruit resources to do it, because I think the people that have the knowledge to do it are the people that are already here.
Well, this is a good thing to share best practices from other brigades, and I think there's definitely a leveling up process that happens. You know, part of the process of the brigade is to take the knowledge that we have internally and put it in the heads of other people in the community. We want to distribute that, so we're not always the blockers, and we're not always the ones that have to do the stuff. So often what happens is we recruit people that don't necessarily have all the skills yet, and then we level them up in a work week. So bring them here in the office, and we can do like 2 or 3 days of knowledge transfer. And then they have the skills to go ahead and do that.
all the stuff in the brigade and that failed with the brigade contract.
So, hi, this is Sisir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I don't know if you are looking at the Performance Brigade Slack. I posted a small setup. So that's for the Cord setup. So what we should do, Spirant, Sukumar from Spirant, they have a setup where we can do a lot of stress and scaling testing. We should plan on doing basically a test without DPDK, with OVS, how many VSGs we can spin up and what kind of throughput we are getting. And then let's bring in DPDK into it and see what kind of improvement we are getting. That will be the decision-making factor. At that point, you decide whether what kind of changes we have to make to integrate.
So there's two, Sisir, it sounds like there are two threads here. One is the testing side. Are we getting the performance we want? How much did we improve it? Benchmarks, and so on. The other aspect of it is, and again, this presumes DPDK is a good thing, which I'm perfectly willing to do, getting it integrated into the standard build system, so it's not a manual process, but automated part of every build. Andy was referring to the second, you're referring to the first.
Yeah, it sounded like Sisir was suggesting that before we worry about how to break down the task, the engineering, that we do some tests to make sure it actually delivers what we expect to get out of it.
Larry, can you please share that 2-page document I have in the performance? I can email that to you. Hold on.
So did you post it to Slack?
Yeah, I posted in Slack, but I can email that to you right now.
I can get the performance.
Yeah.
Just the environment they can emulate lots of traffic that kicks out ESG.
Is it this PowerPoint?
Yeah, this is a PowerPoint.
Okay, so we need to do a quick status of the brigades. We don't really have time to go through a PowerPoint deck right now, but let's.
No, it's a 2-page document. I think it's pretty quick, so that we can, if we spend a couple of minutes, we'll be able to.
Hopefully this worked. There it is. Is that it?
Yeah, that's the one. So the first test case I'm talking about OVS without DPDK, and we need one compute node and one head node where the Volta and XOS stuff will be running. And let's see how much scaling, and throughput we get. And then let's run the same test with DPDK. So we don't have to make any source code change. We can manually bring in DPDK into the OVS, and let's run the same test.
Sure.
And once we analyze these two data sets, then we can decide what kind of changes we have to make to have DPDK as part of the regular build process and so on.
Well, I mean, I see the value in this. I don't see how that affects how we build DPDK in. What am I missing?
In order to do this test, it seems like we already have to have a way of building DPDK into the system in some way. I mean, it could
it's a manual way. Right?
It could be just some, semi-manual way, or just a big script that goes around and makes the changes.
Yes, that's what I'm suggesting. So we bring up an entire Cord setup, and we have a setup. I think Spirant is hosting one test bed where we can run this test. And we bring up using our Cord scripts without DPDK, and then do a little bit of manual process, just the DPDK into OVS.
Yeah, this would be good to get these numbers out of it. So
yes.
I guess the numbers Intel has given us are in an M-Cord setting, because they're trying to use DPDK to optimize their EPC. So having the parallel version here would be a very good thing for our Cord.
Yes, I was also thinking of starting with MCORD, but because last week we had a discussion here, Spirent already has a setup where we can do this thing for our Cord. I think we can get started with our Cord. As far as DPDK is concerned, it's dealing with a lot of traffic, whether it's a mobile traffic or Cord traffic doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, that's true. So I was trying to get to the second slide. Are they the same? Yeah, all right, so good enough, thank you. David, are you there to talk about the container brigade?
I'm always here to talk about something. So in terms of the blocker for the container brigade, the main blocker would be time. I haven't had it yet, is the honest thing. I've been trying to get the time allocated, haven't been able to find it. I was talking, I can't remember who I was talking about with. I think the plan at this point is to plan for one of the brigade work weeks, and I've got to get together with the other David to figure out some logistics around that, get his guidance in terms of what has worked well on those and what hasn't worked well on those, to get that planned out and agended, and then to schedule that to get moving. Outside the brigade, we just have been working with containers and Kubernetes in particular to understand how some of the concepts within Cord work, dealing with things like ONOS clustering type of concepts, external IP addressing. So kind of getting some background mechanics of it all, but haven't done anything really officially at the brigade level yet.
Okay, thanks. So getting that week scheduled is, I think, sounds like the key thing.
There's David, I'll follow up with you offline.
The other information here is that we have a proposal from SKT to do a container thing, but it's containers in OpenStack. And they would follow on with containers in bare metal, which is what this is more focused on. So that'll be a complementary effort, and we're not going to try to entangle them unnecessarily.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, so they're saying they're going to use the plugin within OpenStack to include containers.
And that will be an independent, valuable thing.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, good. Back to the list of brigades. The OpenStack brigade, I don't know that we have anyone online to talk about this. This may, I don't know, is anyone from the OpenStack upgrade people there? This may end up degenerating into someone from Radis is just working on it. We'll see how it goes. It may not turn out to be a team's worth of work. We'll see how we'll see if, but I think that's the best summary of where it is right now. And finally, the hierarchical Cord brigade. Happen.
So we synced up with the lead of this brigade, Rick McKeer, who showed up yesterday. We had some preliminary conversations. We also interacted with Oz and Sandhya from Verizon about their MCORD local LTE use case, which is actually, we all agree this is a really good fit. It has significant overlap with the hierarchical brigade. And it's also heartening to have a real world, a concrete use case that we can target as a parameter for eventual success. Rick and I had we followed up with some discussion on the architecture that we could use. We came up with a few options, some directions emerged, for which I'm going to take Larry's guidance for this afternoon. Rick's going to show up again tomorrow, and I think almost every day this week. So we're going to sync up every day. And hopefully by the end of the week, we should have an action list, and we should be able to estimate what resources we need and have a better idea of, how to go forward. So that's where we're at.
So it might be we don't know what we need to recruit yet.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Yeah, we don't. We're going to interact quite regularly this week. We're going to have quite a few interactions. I think the architecture we use and the bar we set for ourselves, that's going to influence how much effort is going to be required.
And Mark was going to say something.
Yeah, I would like to get at least involved in at some point, because I haven't heard
All right, that's good.
what the, design options are. So.
And do you want to just loop me in once you have a sense of the size of people you need?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, thanks everyone. So the other topic for today was we were just going to start a discussion about ONAP and Cord, and that reminds me, sorry about missing last week. I had multiple independent failures at the same time, and I won't go into it, but everything went wrong at 10 o'clock last Tuesday. All right, so what I'm showing is from the ONAP wiki, architecture diagram, and I think one high-level summary that I would take away is that ONAP has multiple components to it, and therefore there are multiple touch points between ONAP and Cord. The strategy to date has been somewhat divide and conquer, that we would look at individual pieces and try to understand how they're related, as opposed to, there's not one answer here. There's a bunch of different ways that the interaction takes place. Let me also give a high-level thought about architecturally how these two things come together. ONAP has elements that might find themselves embedded in Cord. And in particular, where we've looked mostly so far is in the analytics. There are collectors, and there might in fact be very tight control loops where you react to the data you've collected and actuate on it. Those elements are very likely going to be very close to the metal, and so they would find themselves in Cord. And so we are looking for those opportunities. We're looking for the interfaces that allow that to happen. The monitoring service, which we're now starting to call the telemetry as a service, that nomenclature is a little more consistent, is general enough that there could be multiple layers of collectors. And so we have to, settle the interfaces, but we think that avenue is a productive one. Having said that, I think one of the architectural principles in how these two systems interact is we want Cord to evolve in such a way that it is not overly dependent on ONAP. We don't want it to only work if you have an entire ONAP setup. It should be a self-contained standalone system, as it has been to this point. I think we can achieve both of those goals simultaneously, but that would be a principle about how we approach this that I think we want to stick with, at least for the time being. All right, so as I indicated, the Cord group is already drilling down, trying to understand how to incorporate multiple control loops into the telemetry service. We know that the MSO produces recipes that are handed down, and they're quite often, or they can be Tosca. We have a northbound Tosca interface, so there's reason to believe that might be able to work. You can query Cord for inventory, so that's a matter of matching up APIs. The controllers, I think, is probably ultimately the most interesting interaction, and there's different ways of looking at this. We could give ONAP direct access to apps running on top of ONOS. We could give it direct access to ONOS. We could give it access to the services packaged on the northbound Cord interface. We could give it access to these controllers, access to the infrastructure, because there are ONAP controllers that control infrastructure, such as AIC. So there's a variety of options there. So with that background,
Larry, right there, one thing that we can maybe start looking into is the ONOS RAN, because the RAN notion of RAN slicing and network slicing is pretty important for all of the network service providers. And right now, ONAP doesn't support it. And in Cord, we do. An interface with their controllers for direct inclusion of network slicing as we do it might be a good point to start.
Okay, all right. That's really interesting. So let's explore this one and then other points like that if anyone has anything that they've thought about. So Cord instantiates in its own way of doing it XRAN, and it exposes to ONAP the XRAN capability through an API. Did I summarize what you just said?
Yes, actually, when we think about XRAN, it does two things. XRAN is also through ONOS, it will also push up some analytics data from the RAN, but it will also be used to control the RAN. So it would feed both DCAE and the ONOS RAN would fit in where the controllers are.
But treating XRAN as a use, let me call it a use case or a demonstration, is a nice focused thing to do. I like that.
Yeah, and then that would be a true value add to ONAP as well, because right now they don't have it.
Okay.
So I'm a little confused. So I thought we were discussing integration Cord and ONAP, but what? The suggestion is like going far beyond that, right?
No, I think it's suggesting that we support slicing today on the core or import, and ONAP we support enforce policies of slicing or have its own policy engines on top that
which it doesn't support. So who would like?
Well, that's the point. The point is that I'm interpreting here, but there is a feature inside of Cord that we have or are working on that ONAP has never dealt with before. If we can, but they want to. And so if we can say, here is the Cord API for network slicing, we have put forward an interface for ONAP to meet as a.
That's exactly my point. Yes.
Yeah. And there's plenty of interfaces that ONAP is saying we would like you to behave like this if you're going to plug into ONAP. So we've seen interfaces from the other direction.
But why would the ONAP team then take that on? Because their response will be like, oh, but we have these other 10 interfaces that you don't support. So why would we bother with this new one?
Coming up with the policies for slicing, and then we would enforce the policies and their policies with our slicing. Essentially, but they do want to have policies on what slice should be treated how, what time of the day, or based on some of their thresholds.
So any one of these is not full ONAP. This is the point I think I'm pushing towards. There is no one, here's the answer, we're done. We've now matched up. What we're looking for are points. We're viewing ONAP as a multifaceted thing, and for that matter, Cord's a multifaceted thing. And we're looking for narrow individual points that we could show, here's an interface that you can control, or I'd like to control, can you match this interface? And one of these is network slicing. Another one is, I collect data from a hierarchy of collectors before me. Here's the interface I would like you to deliver telemetry events. And so we could do a coarse grain version of that, and then we might say, you know what, you've got a collector that we would like to import. So these are just general tracks we could follow.
Okay, but so the real question is, so who is consuming this work, or who's driving this work? Because it seems like we're kind of looking for touch points, and we've done that a lot, and then it turns out after 6 months, a lot of hard work, we're dead in the water. Let's do something else. So
I think the extra team did all they can work on this specific use case. We have to.
But so Mark's asking a higher level question, which is, do we have strategic marching orders to figure out how to do this?
Yeah, exactly. So everything, at least for eCord, I think for our Cord and M-Cord, there's at least Guru is pushing us to have a consumer ready or a service provider ready that drives the requirement. I mean, there's like you said, there's tons of interfaces here. We can do all kinds of stuff and be busy for 2-3 years.
We could.
Is that what we want? Yeah, I mean, is that what we want to do? I don't think so. But
So are you asking for within AT&T or?
Yeah, exactly.
Verizon or
AT&T,
whatever?
they say, hey, I want this network slicing. You guys,
But they have already said that, though. Right? They didn't talk about
Okay, so we need, all right, but yeah, Mark is absolutely right. We need to not speculate as to what might be a good thing,
Yeah.
but actually have a commitment slash,
or at least shown some interest. I'm not saying
No, I
network
think-
slicing is not interesting.
No, on this slide, I know
I
AT&T has
completely
been talking
understand
directly to ONAP, and, you know, I've always.
so we need to, all right, so this is to say we need to reduce these brainstorming ideas to A, an executable plan, and B, one that has sufficient backing.
I think so.
Yes, I agree.
It has bitten us too often to keep on doing it.
Yep. Is there anyone online with, well, any other ideas like this, but with that in mind? Let me go online first, Tom. I'm sure you've got some things. Silence? So let me ask another way. Has anyone looked deeply enough into ONAP to understand any of its interfaces?
I know, Larry, I know that Adnan from the Radisys team has done that, but I don't see him on the call today.
Could you send me contact information so I can follow up?
Yeah.
And maybe include Blaine McDonald from AT&T side also. He's not on the call right now, but he's looking at Access Manager, which has a lot of interface into the ONAP. So, yeah, I think he will probably be very interested in being involved.
Okay, yeah, I know Blaine.
Yeah, a couple of people from AT&T, which I think is who is local, who's been getting these guys, you know, another guy, Daniel, who's going to talk to the insurance in a couple of weeks. We can keep them reached.
Yeah, it seems logical at either AT&T or I think it's China Mobile, right?
China Mobile is
they are the root creators of
Right.
this. They understand it best, I would suppose, and know how and where to tie it in and what the need is.
So Tom, do you have?
I have a couple of names from AT&T.
All right, you've got names. Do you have suggestions?
Yeah, suggestions in terms of really, you know, DCA analytics, I think is the, you know, heart of what ONAP needs to drive in terms of distributed edges and all of that. And we are working on these connectors that are, you know, at very primitive at the chip level, at interconnect level, and so on. So if we can give them an interface that they can program these collectors and give it life, right? You know, you spin off these collectors and configure it and basically give it the interfaces. If we can come up with that interface, I think that might be a very big value. Even though DCAE, of course, has its own methods and all of that, it may not be always appropriate for some of the split second, you know, data collection requirements that we have.
So on that front, that is the one that where I was starting. Bora, can you give us a quick update on what's happened so far?
Yeah, actually, we are in the process of building a team around the ONAP integration. I think we're very close to come up with 4 or 5 people that will be dedicated to ONAP integration, first of all, to Cord. And but right up till now, we just did not have any, technical work already done in place. But now it's the time for us to, take it forward.
Who's speaking? I'm sorry. Donna.
Bora.
So someone was asking a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to know who was speaking. So it was Bora.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Bora, you may want to elaborate on the open config and on GNMI, those interfaces, and how.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, they may or may not be tightly related with ONAP. But in order for Cord to benefit from OpenConfig, We have done a few the work, investigation and inspection on that area. We had a few discussions with Anis, and he helped us a lot to put down a candidate architecture that would actually help us to publish, discover, find, and bind dynamically collectors and stuff. And we then organized this with Mariner folks, and there is just a small POC work that we gave it a start just yesterday, where we will have where we will implement a dummy sample collector that will be based on a GNMI interface of OpenConfig. So that's what we are at now. But this is not very related to ONAP.
All right. So one takeaway here is that there is activity in Cord that touches ONAP analytics. There's an activity going, and there's people recruiting around it that are interested in it. There's activity in Cord around XRAN. It's not clear to me, Oz, what that touches exactly in ONAP. I mean, it's policy related. I guess that comes down from the controllers.
Yes, it will be policy driven. So yeah, basically XRAN, the external eNode Bs are programmed through ONOS, will be programmed through ONOS. So the policies, the global policies for network slicing and for certain use cases like IoT coverage or public safety networks, you can imagine these policies being global over the entire geography of the service provider. Those policies will have to come down from ONAP, down to ONOS.
Okay, so this is clearly an aspect of controlling XRAN. You would do this whether there was a specific ONAP there or not, on the presumption that there's some global orchestration going on.
Yes.
Has anyone done enough investigation of ONAP to know which interface you're talking about, where it would plug in, who the counterpart might be on the ONAP side? I'm guessing it's still early for that.
It is a bit early. I mean, I plan on doing that myself, but I haven't started that work.
Okay, thanks. On the Cord side, I mean, Blaine was mentioned. We've got both. I could imagine a similar kind of, here's where you set policy and control. Donna, I'm guessing also nothing has happened there.
No.
In terms of understanding what interfaces you might interact with.
Well, I've reached out to Adnan specifically for our Cord. We've got Amit on the call, but I know that we've not put any specific focus on the interfaces and the integration at this point.
Okay. Well, so I'll loop Blaine in and see if there's some focal activity there that we should be aware of and encourage.
I think a suggestion or maybe a question. Morat is driving some kind of big data on that, I think, right? Or maybe he's trying to do that. I'm thinking maybe if Argela is interested in becoming a system integrator for interfaces with ONAP, maybe that's what we should enable and get AT&T and others to support.
Yeah, well, we see, Radisys is interested as well. I just think we need to, I guess I thought we were having today's call was really about getting that kicked off, right?
Yeah, just understanding what people are thinking about so we can start to formulate a plan around it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So I just couldn't hear well, Tom, what Tom said. It was like.
Just thinking more about his system integrity, what he's interested in driving the ONAP integration. Is Argela as a whole interested in maybe supporting some of that interfaces or ONAP, becoming an ONAP integrator? I'm just thinking loud is that if, both Radisys and, Argela work together, we would have better results on ONAP.
Yeah, agree. And I will be in town on Lab next week, so will Adnan, members of our leadership team, so we can talk.
So there are other folks on the call that have expressed an interest. I just want to give them a chance to speak up as to where their interests are. We're just penciling in names as to who we might get involved. Anyone from Windstream?
Hey, this is Joe Harrison. Yeah, I definitely have an interest in seeing integration between ONAP and Cord. I'm not sure yet how to solve the problem, and I feel like I need to understand more about ONAP to have a firm opinion on what I think that integration ought to be. But I think there is potentially some misalignment in ONAP and Cord in terms of what they're expecting to control and orchestrate from within ONAP, as opposed to what's expected to be controlled and orchestrated from within Cord. And I think they can work together, as you're suggesting. But at least the way I perceive it is that ONAP tends to embrace sort of the traditional NFV model, whereas Cord embraces white box SDN as sort of its core vision. And I agree wholeheartedly that we need to have that Cord architecture that embraces, SDN in the white box vision, control plane forward and separation. But the other thing is that I perceive, at least, that ONAP is expecting to define that end-to-end composition of services at the very top layer. And I think, at least, if there's going to be integration between the two of them, that a healthy integration is one where, as you described, Cord continues to function as this separate, wholly self-contained architecture, and it exposes northward sort of an abstract view of that network, almost as if it were an element within the network, that whole domain that it's controlling. And I think possibly the disconnect there is that, again, what ONAP, I at least as I perceive it, it wants to create sort of an OpenStack heat template to define what exists in that environment. And so it's kind of built around that assumption that it's an OpenStack pod that it's integrating with.
Yeah, so that's an interesting statement. From what I've heard, that's what works today and not an architectural assumption. And in fact, I think some of the ONAP architects would argue they should have been heat as an instance, and something more general like Tosca was the official spec instead of the other way around.
Right.
So I think we will help drive it towards not being OpenStack specific, because I think we need to not be OpenStack specific. Right.
And sort of, at least the way that I perceive a healthy integration between the two of them, again, the implementation details of how Cord implements a service should be in some way abstracted from ONAP. And that very atomic, concrete specification, whether it's Tosca or heat or otherwise, I don't know that end-to-end service needs to be defined at that top layer. I would prefer that ONAP, if it's going to be an upper layer orchestrator, works with a more abstract view of the network. And I might be in the minority in that thinking, but I want to make sure that Cord is self-contained and that we're able to communicate to Cord with sort of an intent, and the implementation details of how that service is composed is defined within Cord itself.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. In fact, the XRAN example arguably is kind of like that. There's a lot of internal things going on, and there is quote unquote, merely an intent/policy interface exposed to ONAP. I think we could do something similar with not specifically Volta, but the whole of our Cord, that there is a way to manage, almost in the same way you would manage a network slice, you can manage a subscriber connection as an abstraction, and ONAP would cause there to be created a subscriber connection, parameterize it, assign policy to it, and then below that abstract interface, Cord would spin up containers and install flow rules and whatever needed to do to make that happen, because those are low loop, control loop things that need to happen.
Right.
That's where I hope we're headed, and that's if we could identify a couple examples that were consistent with that perspective that we could then demonstrate, it would show the way forward, I think, for other interactions.
Yeah, and I support that view. And I think additionally, the expectation too is that ONAP receives in some part all of the analytics and all the telemetry from within the network so that it understands the state, so that it can make orchestration decisions at that level. And again, I think that interface needs to be abstracted. So I guess my concern in general is that if that's the notion within the community that's developing ONAP, that it's controlling very explicitly the configuration and the state of the network, and therefore has to have all this telemetry from the network, that there's potentially a disconnect in sort of a hierarchical recursive model where the implementation details of that domain, which is controlled by a Cord, is abstracted. So I think there's some level of buy-in maybe that needs to exist within ONAP so that people aren't developing at a depth that is unnecessary. It may be that they're still compatible because sort of, you know, as a byproduct of being able to define things at a very low level, well, then you can also define them at a higher level. But I think some of the work and architecturally, they're misaligned. So I hope that that's where we can start, is to try and get alignment in that vision, and to permit the implementation details of you know, an SDN pod to be controlled within that pod itself.
So it would be an interesting test case of that strategy to see if we could find the right ONAP counterpart, and I'm assuming it's through the MSO, and the appropriate, I'm going to hope it's Tosca spec, to create and control a subscriber connection. Or it could be an enterprise connection, but let's just assume it's a residential subscriber connection.
The other part is, how do you discover changes in our?
So what are the dimensions to that interface? There's a statement that I want a subscriber connection with the following policies. There's that being activated. There's telemetry reported on it. And there's reaction to that. If we could take, almost analogous to the M-Cord network slice example, if we could do something like that for something we actually already have, which is a subscriber, which is a residential network slice, if you will, with multiple internal components that are managed currently inside of Cord, that would be a good example, and maybe that shows us a touch point to the MSO. So if everyone on the call or in the room, is there anyone that's done an inventory of the available API specs to know what is and is not specified? For example, if I can show you the Tosca spec for creating a subscriber in Cord, can anyone tell me what the counterpart would look like in ONAP? Has anyone dug to that depth?
Not so far, but this is Joe again. I can take that as an action item.
That would be really good to understand, because if we could show that connection, it would be a model going forward. We're starting to dig it deep enough into the analytics piece to understand there's a hierarchy of collectors, and having a sense of how that actually manifests itself. If we had the counterpart for controlling the subscriber, that would be good.
For telemetry,
as soon as we have that, we can extrapolate to an enterprise subscriber and so on.
For telemetry, it's going to be fairly straightforward, I guess. There won't be much architectural struggles that I would expect to face. But really, on the MSO and service instantiation and orchestration part, I mean, will require lots of more energy than for the analytics part.
Yeah. So I was trying to do a little bit of a divide. If the team that the Cord team can show us how to get telemetry out, and we sort of take it. And I appreciate Joe's offering to do a little digging here. If we could figure out the right ONAP syntax for instantiating a subscriber service, that would be a great example to show.
And Joe, you have access to the, I guess, ONAP discussions and all of that, right? People who can help you in case you have questions on MSO.
Yeah, we're a silver member sponsor, so I think we have access to the information that we need.
Okay, anything else on this? I will try to send out a summary email. I think this will proceed for the time being as a bunch of loosely affiliated drill downs within different groups. And we'll revisit it on the TST until we have something more concrete to go forward with.
Of the use cases we know about, are there any of them that have a component of integration with this? I guess that's one question. And the second question is, as ONAP, are they kind of sponsoring any kind of use cases to start getting different groups working together to make something happen, right? I mean, it's good to kind of look at some things low level and think about how things might come together, but I think that has to be paired with a practical, drive towards a particular usage, right? And
this multi-access edge, maybe we can use that as a use case.
With which customer?
I see.
No, so I'm actually looking for like a real, is there an operator that wants to see ONAP used in a certain case, right? And can we participate in that? Right, and that will drive a lot of activity around learning of what's there in ONAP.
Right.
So, Bill, this is Asim. When the last time we talked to folks from AT&T and the ONAP TST, it was clear that their current focus is just on getting the ONAP 1.0 released, and there is no real use case or deployment being planned beyond what is happening with eComp today, right? So that was the feeling I got. Maybe someone who has been more active on ONAP can tell us otherwise.
Did you have do they have a timeline?
Yes, there was a timeline. This was a call where Murat and I got on a call because Murat had stirred up some conversations on their Slack channels. I think it is happening in, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going off memory, but September is when the 1.0 is coming out. Okay, and everything which is not kind of geared towards helping that cause is second priority, is what we are told in so many words.
So what's find online right now is a pre 1.0, just for clarity.
Correct.
It's right. It is sort of incrementally coming out. The APIs aren't all there. The code's not all there. But they have a roughly, by your memory, a September 1 target for getting everything out.
Asim, can I ask, is this
correct
driving the 1.0 release? Or
no. So they had these two meetings, right? One was hosted by AT&T in New Jersey, and the other was hosted by China Mobile in Beijing. I think I would love to have someone from our community be participating in those and giving back feedback, because there's a lot of details being discussed. Obviously, no one from ON Lab has had the time and the energy to attend these meetings. But do you know, Tom, do you know anyone who attends these meetings who can bring us some feedback?
Yeah, I'm from AT&T side, I know a lot of people, but, we should probably set up these ONAP, bi-weekly calls with them and just maybe throw questions at them, maybe we should set that up, I think.
Well, wait a minute, they've got calls, I think the same suggestion is that we have someone participate in those, that's what I heard.
From ONLab, he's saying that.
Yeah.
Not from.
Yeah, from the Cord community, right? Yeah.
I would say more not from OnLab, but from our community, right?
Right.
And so, for example, our integrators are going to be very interested in how ONAP comes together with Cord and all of that, right? So our integrators should have engineers that are part of this, and they're also part of the TST, right? And
yeah.
Good point.
All right, so one of the asks in my summary will be, we need someone from the Cord community to participate in the ONAP calls to help us understand, Cord understand what's going on and if there's opportunities to provide guidance.
I am on the discussion list and all of that on that, but honestly, I cannot keep up with all the stuff that's going on. It's just, every 5 minutes there's an activity.
Okay, so that's going to be true for anybody. So how do we deal with it? Okay, no obvious answer. Anything else? All right, I don't have anything else. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.